Showtime! The Capital G Show starts right now.
What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. So guys, today I'm talking about a deck that could end up being an incredibly sneaky dark horse pick for Nationals. And don't get me wrong, I don't expect this deck to win Nats. However, if it did end up making a top 8 spot, it would not surprise me at all. The deck that I'm talking about is Psychic Beatdown. You can call it Grand Soil Psychics or Earth Psychics, whatever. You guys know the deck. And the reason I'm kind of high on this deck right now, and I feel like it's trending upward, is because you look at like the top 3 decks of the format, and I think it has really solid matchups against those. Now, you might end up getting smashed by, some of the lower tier decks like Monarchs or, Fire Fist, some of the random things, but, if you're playing at a really high tier, high level caliber event where you expect the top tier decks to be the bulk of what you play, I think this deck might have the best chance out of, what most people would consider rogue decks right now. The number one reason why I like Psychic Beatdown right now is simple. You have very solid game 1 matchups against both Prophecy and Dragon Rulers, and I mean, anybody with a lick of common sense would tell you that those are the 2 best decks of the format right now. And let's take the Prophecy matchup first. I mean, this match can basically be a cakewalk with Emergency Teleport now at 3. I mean, you're almost guaranteed to drop Naturia Beast on the field turn 1, and from there you pretty much auto win. I mean, their only outs are Jogan and High Priestess, which, they have to have those in their opening hands, otherwise they're probably going to lose about 2 turns later. Not to mention, if you've got something like a Book of Moon or a Fiendish Chain or a Solemn Warning, then that one out that they have is basically a non-factor. The Dragon Ruler matchup isn't that particularly difficult either, and I say that because Psychic Jumper is like the absolute perfect counter to the Draco Sack play. Let's say your opponent summons Draco Sack and just passes turn, and that's a pretty common play amongst Dragon Ruler players. Alright, well, here's how you counter that. Summon Psychic Jumper, teleport out any other Psychic monster in your deck, doesn't matter. Pay 1,000 life points, activating Psychic Jumper's effect. You give them the Psychic monster, you take their Draco Sack, you activate the Draco Sack, getting your 2 tokens, then you Synchro for Crimson Blader and you attack the random Psychic monster. Not only are they going to take a mess of damage, but, I mean, next turn, they can't special summon any of their dragon monsters, and if they set anything on the field, then you know that it's either a hand trap or it's probably, a baby dragon or something like that, and if they do that, all you have to do is just attack over it again with Crimson Blader. So they're put in a lock to where, it's like, am I going to sit there and, let them attack me directly or potentially OTK me, or am I going to stay locked out? So, the great counter that Psychic Jumper provides for Draco Sack, I won't even mention Grand Mole, it makes this matchup actually pretty solid. Now, initially, I did think that the Evil Swarm matchup could have been a potential nightmare because Ophion is just an absolute beast against the Psychic deck. I mean, it locks you out of your Redox and Grand Soil drops. It doesn't allow you access to your higher level synchros, but when you actually look at the way that the Psychic deck is constructed, you have enough main deck answers to deal with Ophion easy enough. I mean, you have Grand Moil in the main deck. You've got main deck Psychic Jumper, which I just talked about. This deck runs multiple copies of Breakthrough skills, so, I mean, you can make sure that your opponent can't search the Pandemic Virus, or you can, use it on your turn so that you turn off the Ophion. And a lot of Psychic players out there are teching in a single copy of Psyblocker, which that you can teleport out, you can activate his effect, and then you can simply turn off the Ophion like a light switch and just overwhelm your opponent, with Redox and Grand Soil and big synchros that they won't really have answers to. I also like the fact that the Psychic deck can smash rogue decks like Dark World and Chainburn without the need for any virus cards, simply by making the Naturia synchros consistently game 1. I mean, if you drop Barkion against Chainburn and you don't summon any other monsters, it's basically GG. If you make Nat Beast turn 1 against Dark World, it's basically GG, and you don't have to rely on, drawing virus cards to auto win against those decks. Your Naturia synchros basically do the same exact thing. The deck also has OTK power with Grand Soil and Redox, and you don't ever have to worry about potentially running defensive cards like Bottomless or Torrential Tribute or stuff like that, because you can max out on Earth hand traps like Maxi and Swift Scarecrow for countering OTK potent decks like Mermill, but at the same time, when those cards hit the graveyard, they're also fuel for cards like Redox and Grand Soil, so that you can, potentially go for an OTK against your opponent next turn while knowing that, those cards play defense for you during your turn. So, I mean, I like this deck a lot. I think that it answers, the higher tier decks pretty consistently. I think that against the rogue decks, again, you can make the Notorious Synchros relatively easy and just smash those decks. Some of the lower tier decks like Monarchs and Firefish, you will have some problems with those decks, but if you're just looking for a deck that's going to combat the higher top 3 decks in some of the really rogue matchups, I think that this deck is a really good choice right now. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you later. Subscribing makes life happy.